Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkifi podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the very first episode of Market Movers, Building Brands and Links with Linkifi. Today, I'm really excited that we are joined by Dominic Wells. Some of you who have been in the game for a while may remember him as the man behind Human Proof Designs, which he sold a few years ago for a high six-figure exit. I remember that business well. I was also a customer. And now he is the CEO behind Onfolio, a NASDAQ-listed company, which acquires and manages a portfolio of digital companies. This gives Dom a completely unique perspective across a wide breadth of businesses and a unique insight into the digital landscape. Myself and Nick were also lucky enough to see Dom speak at the Chiang Mai SEO conference at the end of last year, and we are fortunate to have him on the podcast today. So, Dominic, welcome.
Wow, great intro. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be here. And I didn't know until just now that this was the first episode, so that kind of adds a little bit of fun to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like I said, yeah, me and Nick both saw you speak. Great speech, by the way, in Chiang Mai. Are you going this year as well?
Yeah, I think so. It's that time of year. It's so busy that I kind of have to pick and choose my battles. Last year, I was able to say to the wife, you know, I can't not go because I'm speaking. But this year, I don't know if I'll get the same pass. So we'll see. But I'd like to go because it's just such a quality conference. You know, pretty much everybody goes. So if I don't go, you know, someone else will get my ticket, and hopefully it's awesome for them.
Well, hopefully we'll see you there.
Okay, John, I'm going to jump straight into our first question. It's been a fascinating transition from what one might deem to be a very well-timed exit, especially in the current SEO landscape, at least for Human Proof Designs, through to becoming the CEO of a NASDAQ-listed company. Can you give us a little bit of insight into that journey?
I'd like to say I saw it coming, but I think when I left Human Proof, I didn't really see it coming. So in hindsight, it was a pretty well-timed exit, and someone recently asked me if I would buy the business back if I had a chance to. And I don't think I would. I don't really know anything about it now. I don't know if it's larger than it was when I was running it or if it's smaller or whatever. But just from the outside, I probably wouldn't because I'm not so sure about that business model anymore. And, you know, people who are familiar with niche website builders and the issues they had about a year ago, that probably speaks to that a little bit as well. Part of the reason I left or I sold was because I already had the idea for Onfolio. So Human Proof Designs really changed my life because it was my first success online. I'd made a bit of money with some of the niche websites and stuff we had, but this was like $5,000 a month, that kind of thing. Whereas Human Proof, we did $1 million revenue the year before I sold, and I think 1.1 million the year I sold. So it was the first kind of big business I'd owned. It felt big. And with Onfolio, I basically saw this opportunity to move into a space where I was already acquiring businesses myself, and the Human Proof audience had a lot of people who were interested in buying bigger businesses, not just done for you affiliate websites and starter sites. People who were interested, you know, I had people say, hey, I've got 50K or I've got 100K, I want to buy something off Empire Flippers, but I don't know what's a good business. I don't know how to run it if I buy it and all these things. Maybe you should start a service that, that kind of helps people do it. And I was already really interested in that space myself, and I was kind of living and breathing it, and I wanted to think bigger. That was what part of my talk at Chiang Mai SEO was about, was I was working so hard at Human Proof Designs, and like I said, it changed my life, but I also felt like I was spinning my wheels and I was only like where I was. I felt like I could be so much better, so much more successful financially, so much less stressed out. Apparently, being a publicly traded CEO is less stressful.
Yeah, go figure.
I just felt like if I'm going to work my ass off, I want to do something with a much bigger payoff. So I felt like I kind of hit a ceiling with human proof designs. So I basically thought, okay, look, this Onfolio idea seems to be popular. It's something I want to do, something I'm more interested in. I feel like I've kind of outgrown some of the beginners that were the clientele of human proof, and I had this unique opportunity to raise money or work with individual investors, moving more into an M&A world. And it felt like at that time, I think this was sort of late 2018, early 2019, there were a lot of people who were looking for returns elsewhere because we'd had like a 10-year bull run. So people were looking at alternative investments, and online business was really, I think it peaked a couple of years later, but it was just starting to accelerate. So it felt like great timing as well. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And so I started Onfolio a few months before, and then I sold Human Proof Designs. And it was a pretty good transition. So that's how I kind of arrived there.
The stars aligned.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you start Onfolio. Tell us about your portfolio there. How many content sites do you have? How many agencies? What's the balance look like? And are you looking to rebalance that moving forward?
Yeah, I think we'll always rebalance. I think at the moment we've got about 5 agencies. 2 of them, we don't own them outright. We manage them for investors, and 3 of them we own outright. Those are all... One of them is content and links. One of them is just links. One of them is kind of more digital marketing / full stack SEO. And then the ones that we manage are just link building and outreach and that kind of thing. We also have an online course. We have a small e-commerce business and a marketplace. We do have a bunch of content sites still that we've slowly been selling off our content site portfolio. And in terms of quantity of sites, content sites make a large part of our portfolio. But in terms of revenue, I think we're at about 5 million revenue, and content sites probably make up like 50K. So very small percentage revenue wise. So they're like the forgotten children that we don't really care about.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so I assume then that the content sites you said is something that you're trying to slowly get rid of. Do you think to a point where you won't own any content sites at all?
Maybe. The content sites we own, we will either shut down or sell off. And we're not really interested in buying anything new at the moment. So saying that, then yeah, maybe we'll never own any. But I don't want to kind of say for sure that we'll never own any. And I also think people have different definitions of content sites. So I don't want someone to say, oh, you said you never own one. But the kind of SEO, SEO reliant affiliate site that tries to rank for like best, XYZ affiliate term. And that's like the entire business model. I don't think we'll own any of those again.
Well, that brings me to my next question then. So it's been a bit of a horror story for niche sites and content sites lately, as we know. What's your take on the road ahead, and how should people be tweaking their game plan to stay in the lead? So let's say people that have still got content sites, niche sites, affiliate sites that are working. How are they going to stay ahead of what could be coming?
Yeah, I think the sort of fundamental truth in the world is that good content will always have an audience. So when you consider that, you think, okay, yeah, good creating content as a business model is always going to be viable. Like you guys are creating a podcast that's going to hopefully have an audience, and that will be something that's valuable. So having a website that has some form of content on it that people want to read as a business model, that's going to work. I think the main issue most content sites face right now is traffic. So there's kind of 2 strategies you can do. One, which is something Gail from Authority Hacker has been talking about recently is kind of changing your business model. So you're not, so maybe like paid advertising can work, or another form of traffic generation can work. And then there's another thing, which is what a lot of niche site people are going into, which is kind of doing more of the same, but getting traffic from Facebook. So maybe you're creating more social media friendly traffic, or also Pinterest. And so I think kind of both are viable, and I think probably you should do both anyway, because if this has taught us anything, it's that one business model, one traffic source is not a good idea. I do think SEO will still be important too, but I think if you really want to build a niche site in the future, you shouldn't be thinking, I'm gonna rank in Google and that's gonna be my business model.
Yeah, and it's as old as the age of building these sorts of sites anyway. Like, diversify your traffic source. We've got clients that have not really been hit by the Google update, or if they have, then they're taking traffic from so many other sources that it's much less of a shot to the gut than if you're relying 99.9% on Google traffic. But yeah, diversifying sources of traffic is seemingly what everyone's rushing to do now. But it's always been a good idea to do that.
Yeah, I think most people just didn't bother because most people's content, I think there's two things. Most people were kind of lazy, so you wanted to just build content, build links, and then wait for Google to send you traffic. And I think that most people's content wasn't necessarily good enough for other sources of traffic. So, you could get to the top of Google, but that was kind of all you needed to do. Whereas if you really want to succeed, you just need to create better content now, which is, maybe it's not viable for a lot of people, but that's probably what the successful model will look like.
It definitely takes more effort. I think it was an easy strategy and it worked well for a long time. So, okay, so with your portfolio now, what kind of changes are you guys making? After the Google updates and the mass adoption of AI, how are you changing your strategy?
Well, we haven't really changed it much since AI because we started moving away from content sites or the kind of niche affiliate sites in late 2020, because every time there was a Google update, it felt like more and more sites were getting hit. Like in 2018, 2019, there'd be an update, some of your sites would go up, some of your sites would go down, and usually you were okay. I think from the November 2019 update was the first time I was like, everything went down. Like, well, what just happened? And then December 2020, there was another one. And then March or April 2020, Amazon did its big slashing of affiliate fees and everything. And so it felt like every update in 2020, you would look at the SERPs and niche sites were losing out to e-commerce sites, or they were losing out to New York Mag and those big publishers. So it felt like Google was clearly going in a certain direction. And so we did think AI was a threat because we didn't know ChatGPT was going to come out. We felt like there were just other publishers out there that had way more money to invest in scaling AI systems, and it was going to be hard to keep up with them. Whereas actually it kind of went the other way around, like AI basically became free. And so when ChatGPT and everything came out, it didn't really make us pivot because we were kind of luckily, again, maybe well-timed exit again, but we already had kind of moved away. It made us a bit nervous about some of our agencies because we've got a content agency, we've got link building agencies. But then we kind of realized actually links become a bit more valuable now and digital PR becomes more valuable. So not necessarily an issue, but it's making us focus, just making sure we're diversified. So, if we have agencies, don't make them all SEO agencies. If we have e-commerce businesses, don't have them all rely on TikTok or something like that. So it's just about having a mixture of diversification and just not reliance on a single thing.
would you say you fundamentally changed your acquisition strategy? I mean, it sounds like you were already putting that change in motion since 2020. So maybe that brings me to my next question, which would be when you're looking to acquire an agency, a B2B, a SaaS, when you're looking for these digital properties, what are like the fundamental things that you're looking for a good acquisition today in today's climate?
Fundamentally, it hasn't changed. It's always, okay, is this a good business? Are the cash flows and the revenues more or less stable? Do we think it's going to be around in 5 years or 3 years or 4 years or hopefully 10 years? Do we think this business will survive a transition, or is it too heavily reliant on a founder? Or, like, does the biz dev just come from a single source? So fundamentally that hasn't changed, but maybe the answer to those questions has changed. So right now we like agencies because actually they're actually pretty robust and adaptable, and people may think AI may make some agencies obsolete, but I think it just enables agencies to operate differently. But they're able to, an agency can pivot, like an SEO agency maybe 5 years ago was selling PBN links, and now they're doing digital PR, or they're doing Harrow outreach. And 3 years ago or 4 years ago, they were doing scholarship links, and now they're doing Harrow or something. And so the agencies themselves survive. They just, the thing they fulfill for their clients is changing. So it's really about, we're kind of answering two fundamental questions, I guess. One is, will this business survive a transition long term? And two, in what ways can we add value to it after the acquisition? And I think where our philosophy has evolved over the years is not just in answering, will this business survive, but it's also in what ways can we assist it? And I think as we've got better at what we do and got more data, and we can look back on where we did well and where we failed, the answer changes just based on our own learnings.
Yeah. So what do you think SEO agencies are going to look like over the next couple of years? What kind of changes do you think we'll see? Right now you're saying, Harrow, digital PR is kind of what we're moving towards, or what we're at. The organic traffic is becoming a little bit less of a focus, a little bit harder to get. What do you think SEO agencies look like in the future?
I think they will provide more data analysis to their clients. So, for example, if in the past maybe an SEO agency would do content creation as part of its SEO strategy, maybe now they don't actually need to do that content creation because it can be created cheaply with AI or whatever. But clients might say, yeah, we can create the content, don't worry, but they still need help understanding where their content is performing. Nobody understands Google Analytics 4 anymore. So having things like proper analytics dashboards, I forgot what it's called now, but Google Data Studio changed its name as well. But people like basically that are like assisting you to understand where your content's performing, where your SEO is performing, kind of like what RevOps is doing for marketing, tech, and sales. And RevOps is a relatively new thing, but it's essentially it's like helping a business understand its architecture. So you're going to have this email funnel, you're going to have HubSpot here, you're going to have this here, and then understanding that setup and working with them to get the best stack, and then understanding how it's working and building a system around it. I think SEO agencies will probably be moving that way for companies, basically saying, look, maybe SEO is not your entire business, but we're going to help you understand how SEO is working for you, how your content's performing, and how your link building is performing, rather than just kind of being like a commoditized or even productized, you pay us this money, we'll give you this many links. I think that'll probably still exist, but maybe it will fall out of favor. But I could be totally wrong.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be a smaller focus on Google itself?
I don't think so. I think SEO will still always be about Google. I just think maybe businesses will, maybe they'll, it's so hard because it depends whether people start searching fundamentally different and using ChatGPT and Perplexity more, or whether that's just like us and we use it more, but the average person on the street still uses Google. But yeah, I think SEO will still focus on Google, but maybe businesses will view Google as a smaller part of their traffic generation.
I think that was really interesting what you said about the interpreting data as well. I mean, anyone that's ever tried to use Google Data Studio, it's a it's a hard thing to do. But yeah, being able to get that data and present it to a client in a meaningful way is definitely something I can see being more of a fundamental part of SEO agencies or businesses of that nature. Really interesting. Okay, Dom, big question now. You answer to a higher God than Google. I know it's blasphemy for me to say, namely your shareholders. Is this fast changing environment, firstly, is it hard for you to convey to new and existing customers, or is profit still the only consideration? And do you have relative autonomy to run your company how you see fit?
So like the board of directors, their role is being independent. So they are basically responsible for representing the shareholders and working with management, which is me and the other members of C-suite, to make sure that we're not, doing anything stupid or misallocating funds or going after acquisitions that don't make sense. But they're not dictating strategy or saying you should do this or you should do that, because fundamentally that's not their job. If they start getting too involved with the company, then they're no longer independent anymore. And for me, I'm the chairman of the board and I'm also the largest shareholder. So it's I kind of straddle everything. So generally what's good for a shareholder is good for what I'm going to do, which is good for me as the manager of the company, is because it's also what's right for shareholders, because I'm the one who benefits the most as well. In terms of when you say customers, I assume you're asking about shareholders with the beginning of your question when you said, is it hard to explain to customers something? Were you talking about shareholders or something else?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's almost presented like you can come on and buy shares. So it's from that forward facing Onfolio website perspective, somebody who's come in looking to invest, maybe as a smaller investor. Is that an ongoing conversation you have to have with shareholders, customers about the evolving landscape, or are your customers just looking at the gains in their investments? Because it's quite it's quite a new market to explain to customers, isn't it? The digital investment space.
Yeah, I think it depends on the individual. So we have some people who they think very long term. They understand the fundamentals of the business, and maybe they own an online business themselves, for example. So they're probably backing me and the team and the business model, and they're just thinking, okay, long term, this thing could be worth a lot. Whereas there's others who come in and they don't really know anything about the company. They're just looking to trade in and out of something. But sure, I mean, there's definitely. I had someone the other day saying, are you worried about AI damaging your content site portfolio? And I was like, well, our content site portfolio is 1% of our revenue, so no. And there are people out there who are like, Dom's been talking about moving away from content for about 4 years. So there's always people who don't. They check in from time to time, so they can't be expected to listen to everything I say or everything I write, so they don't know where we are. And people also only do surface level analysis, or they think of something, decide that is the conclusion, and then move on. So somebody might say, "Oh, AI is a threat to Onfolio, so I sold my shares," and it's like, well, you didn't think about actually AI can make our margins better. One of our outreach companies writes its guest posts with AI now instead of with Serbian contractors, and the content's higher quality, gets fewer complaints, and is basically free. So people they don't think about, they just come to the first idea that they have, and then that's their decision. And that's not necessarily me sort of complaining about them. That's just like the nature of how people think. So there is a little bit of a battle, I guess, at some points where I'm like, yeah, that's actually the wrong interpretation. But at the same time, it's a distraction for me to worry too much about that. My job is really to just grow the profits of the company. And then people will stop caring about questions like that anyway. So in some ways, it's like, well, listen, we communicate with how we think, with what we're seeing, and people believe us or they don't believe us. And then we just get on with doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, earlier you mentioned digital PR. Is that something, digital PR and link building, is that a current strategy for your portfolio?
Well, I think one of our agencies sells digital PR and another one white labels it from that one. And it wouldn't surprise me if all of them sell it in some manner or another. So using digital PR as a service that we can offer, yeah, that's definitely part of our portfolio. Doing digital PR for our own companies, yeah, sometimes I've done a lot of digital PR. I think digital PR also has two labels. There's like real digital PR, where you're actually trying to go on Bloomberg, for example, and then there's digital PR, which is basically paid guest posting with a different name. And so there's there's just different labels to it, but it's definitely like the hot new thing that everybody wants to do as a link building strategy. And I think one reason for that is that a lot of sites that you could buy links on in the past are getting de-indexed now. So whereas if you're buying links on actual legit properties, then that risk becomes a lot lower. And the other thing is, I think a lot of good publications are realizing that they need to find different ways of making money because maybe display advertising isn't working for them anymore. And so they're basically selling just digital PR opportunities. It could be the journalist who works for the publication is handling it, and the money's going to the publication, but the journalist is responsible for it. It could be public, you just pay editorial fees. Like Outlook India, for example, I'm sure 6 months ago they were making money hand over fist. So I think it's basically buyers are realizing we should be buying these types of links, and publications are realizing we should be selling these kinds of links. And so, it's a pretty good situation for that. It's kind of like the latest hot thing that everyone's interested in the link building industry.
Yeah, paid links is definitely going upstream. A lot of the cheaper ones are getting de-indexed, and there's still opportunities to buy good links, but there's definitely a big separation between paying for links and building them through actual digital PR.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, Dom, to finish things off then, you've been a fantastic guest. I just want to know if you've got any advice for new entrants into the digital business environment. What would you advise for them to get started? Aside from the obvious that they can make an investment in Onfolio, would you suggest starting content sites, niche sites, authority sites, or any other ways that you think is a good way to dip one's toes into the waters of this sort of online digital space?
Yeah, I've thought about this question a lot recently, because up until maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have told people, yeah, just start a niche website. That's a good way to make money. Because it was relatively easy. It took time, and you had to, the challenge was the feedback loop. You might create content and build links, and you have to wait 6 months to actually find out if it worked. But apart from that, it was relatively straightforward. I know a lot of SEOs say that they're kind of geeks and they're into it for the algorithm, but like a lot of crypto people say they're in it for the tech as well. But realistically, you're in it because it seems like a good way to make money. And so I don't think that is a good way to start anymore. I think, I just think it's not the easiest way to make money anymore. So the question is, what is? And I'm not entirely sure yet, but I think I think starting a service or an agency or something is actually still a really good way to make money. You just get good at something, you offer it to someone. You probably start off offering it cheaper than others do because that's how you get your first customers. And then you before you know it, you've got an agency and you hate your life. But that's a good way to make your first dollars and then move on to something else. I think it depends what people are interested in as well. Like some people get into paid traffic and e-commerce and that works for them, and then that's just what they do, and they do well with that. Others want to build a SaaS, and so I think you kind of have to find this balance between trying lots of different things and seeing what kind of clicks for you, but also you kind of have to try it long enough. You can't just keep giving up and trying something new. You have to stick at it long enough to know, to gain some traction and understand if it actually is the thing for you. But also, don't just go all in on one thing and then give up. So I'm trying to turn that into actionable advice. Would be, study a few different business models, maybe go work for a company to learn, and just, you have to find where your strengths are and where your interests are and get a little bit of momentum, and then follow your nose and double down on it.
I think that's great advice. I also think just starting as well, making that start and giving it 6 months, 12 months. For us, when we started Linkifi, there was an organic way that our business started. There was an organic need from the customers that were asking if they could buy what it is that we did. So we were able to to get instant feedback on the idea being good. Like before we started, you said people were asking you to start Onfolio. So I think if you just get started with an idea and give it that 6 to 12 months, then you'll find feedback from within the industry from other people as well, and it can guide you on a more clear path. So I think that's really good advice. Dom, it's been fantastic having you on as a guest. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Onfolio.com, and then you can go onfolio.com/newsletter to sign up to my newsletter. I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn. Just at Dom Wells Onfolio is my Twitter. LinkedIn, I don't know what it is. Just find my name. But just reach out. I'm pretty approachable. I generally reply to people when I can. So feel free.
Okay. Last question. Where's Onfolio going to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
5 years, I think significantly more revenue than we're at now. I think we could be, there's no ceiling for us because we're just acquiring companies. So we if we can't grow revenue, we just go out and buy some. So it could be 50 million, could be 100 million revenue. It's really hard to make a prediction that far out. 3 years is a lot easier. I'd say we'll be at say 20 million revenue. But beyond that, it kind of just becomes super abstract.
Okay. Well, I'm ashamed to say I'm not yet an investor in Onfolio, but I'll make sure I change that after this podcast. So, Dom, thank you very much for being a guest. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
3, 2, 1. And that wraps up this episode of Market Movers, Building Brands and Links with Linkifi. Big thanks to our parent company, Linkifi, the wizards behind turning ambitious businesses into standout brands. Hit up our website at linkifi.io and take the first steps towards brand greatness. Big shout out to Fame for making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening, folks. Stick around for more insights in our next episode. Catch you later.